Oh, okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Patrick from the Poison Pen Bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona, and thanks for joining us for another virtual event. And today we are joined by May Cobb, whose brand new book is The Hollywood Assistant. What a handsome cover. And May has signed a batch of books for us. I can show you there. And I'll go ahead and put a link here in the comments field on YouTube and Facebook, should you wish to purchase one. And also, if you have questions for May or Barbara, just go ahead and type them in, and Barbara will bring me on screen in just a little bit, and I'd be happy to ask any questions you might have. So, Barbara, over to you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Well, May, let's talk for a moment about all the exciting things happening in your life with the hunting wives, where you should actually be somewhere in that vicinity, but instead you're home.
Yes, it's so exciting. The Hunting Wives, for those who may not know, is being made into an 8-episode series for Stars, and it's very exciting. They did actually just wrap filming, but I'm so excited. I'm executive producer on it, and I've gotten to visit set, multiple times and witness it come to life, and they're doing an incredible job. So I'm really excited and grateful.
Do you know when it's going to air? Have they told you?
No, we don't know that yet.
Oh, even more exciting here. This is like suspense,
Yeah.
a thriller. Are you allowed to discuss the cast, or is that part of the NDA?
No, I can. Yeah, it's got a terrific cast. Malin Ackerman is in it, and Dermot Mulroney, Brittany Snow, Katie Lowe's, Chrissy Metz. It's just it's so terrific. I can't just speak highly enough of the cast, and I love your shirt, and it does indeed match the book cover. It's so glamorous. I love it. It's perfect.
Thank you very much. Last night I dressed in blue to match T. Jefferson Parker's Surf's Up thriller set in Laguna Beach. It's just a harmless thing I do to amuse myself, to try to, dress for the occasion one way or the other. But it was
Love it.
actually not easy to dress for the contents of this book, because it involves a very posh Hollywood couple. And dressing posh is not that easy. This is a very interesting story, which keeps twisting along. And I'm going to say, although you won't know what I'm referring to, that in my opinion, the wrong person died. That's what I think.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I love this opinion though.
Right. So you're going to have to read the book to find out, see if you can guess which person I mean. But there, I think May's books are wonderful in the sense that she really sketches out her characters so lifelike that you feel like you really know them. So, how do you get yourself into the heads of all these people?
Thank you, Barbara. That's high praise. Gosh, I would love to say that there was some sophisticated sounding trick, but really for me, the characters do guide the story. So if I can't kind of hear them, see them, sit in the room with them, the book is dead and it's game over. So they kind of decide for me. And I think I've always just been, like most writers, a very maybe too observant person. My husband said I should have been a police officer. So I think, yeah.
Well,
Um,
I mean, I know lots of writers who say, one of the things they do is go out to some public gathering and just sit and listen to people,
yeah.
or walk around and listen to people. If you want to write realistic dialogue, it's important that understand how people talk. Have you yourself been around like a Hollywood power couple in a Malibu palazzo?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, over 20 years ago, I was a Hollywood assistant to a power couple. And so while the, initial setup is similar, and that I was like a young struggling writer, and then I got this dream job, that's where the similarities end, because they were so great to me. We're still friends. I actually just went out and stayed with them. I hadn't seen them in years, but we've kept in touch. So they're nothing at all like this couple, but just that initial sort of setup of someone walking into what seems like a fairy tale, and then it, you know, spirals into something else. Yeah. So, but I was, you know, look, I had just, you know, been kind of like living in the Bay Area in this small little drab apartment, eating, you know, frozen dinners. And then I got catapulted into this whole other world, which was a lot more posh and lush. And so it was like this, but also a lot more creative too. So it
Right.
was,
No, I get it. And, you know, it reminds me of many, not necessarily contemporary, but certainly, you know, British historical mysteries where, you know, there'll be some, you know, young woman who arrives as the governess or arrives as the lady's companion or is somehow taken in and adopted or whatever and plunged into a lifestyle that is foreign and, you know, and unexpected. Often it ends badly. I'm
yeah.
glad for you. Here you are. So obviously it didn't, but I mean, it is kind of a literary form that we have seen, you know, in many manifestations. And I think probably in America, it's either going to have to be a tech mogul or some sort of Hollywood to, you know, to be the equivalent of the Ducal Mansion.
So this is one of the million reasons why I love coming on and talking to you, because you always point out these brilliant things. I have never even thought about that with this book.
Really?
And yet I studied Victorian literature, you know, for my master's in that drab apartment in the Bay Area. And this, I never made that link. So that's really cool. I'm going to use that in my talking points now.
You really should. I mean, you know, I think is that, you know, one of the great things about story is that, you know, it's that whole thing about, you know, it's the same but different. But there are a certain number of kind of classical story structures, and certainly one of them is this one, you know, and sometimes it's not a woman, sometimes it's a guy. You
That's true.
know, that
Yeah.
I mean, if you go back to Josephine Tay and Brat Farrer, for example, and you know, he comes to this, you know, fancy home. Nobody knows for sure if he's really the lost heir or an
Wow.
imposter. And you know, but he's clearly an outsider in the situation. So it doesn't have to be a female-centric form at all.
Yeah, that's true. That's
It's
true.
almost a variation on A Stranger Comes to Town, if you think about it, followed by, you know, a person goes on a journey. If those are the classical story structures, then it's kind of that equivalent, if you think
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Yes. And then what's the other one? Is it the love triangle? Because then that could be maybe this too a little.
I'm not entirely sure. I know, you know, a stranger comes to town or a person goes on a journey or, you know, kind of but yeah, I suppose certainly when romanticy, I got 3 emails today. People have been asking me desperately, men essentially, but also women, what is this new romanticy? You know, what is this new thing? And I got an email today from one of the publishers that's really specializing in it with all kinds of examples and story forms and all. So I've been sending it around trying to explain it. But, you know, publishing, if you spend any time in it, you recognize that it tends to fasten on a particular kind of story.
Yeah.
And that everybody wants to copy it. I mean, you know, if you go back to the Da Vinci Code, we had Da Vinci clones, religious conspiracy thrillers for years. You
True.
know, after that, and Gone Girl, we still haven't recovered from.
Yeah.
But romanticy is actually edging it out. You know, it's a new, and now there's a subgenre which I truly love called the cottagecore. I bet you didn't know that word.
No. What is that?
It means cozy fantasy. We did an event Friday night with 2 very nice young women. And I said to them, I called it a portal fantasy, like Narnia, you know, going through the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or cozy fantasy. And they said, no, cottagecore is what really resonates with people who are, you know, into this. So I'm finding it increasingly hard to sort of keep up with these trends, but nonetheless, they still are, you know, these basic forms. It's still Narnia, you know,
Yeah.
even if it's a young girl, you know, going off the differences, there's a lot more in the hardcore romantasy. There's a lot of real sex, you know, so
Is that right? Okay, I haven't read it yet.
Well, I was landed in Boston and spent an unwanted day in the airport where the only thing I could do was go to the bookstore and buy a copy of The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And so that's how I learned about romanticy. But I digress. Let's go back and talk about your book, and let's talk about your Hollywood couple, because when we first meet them, we're not entirely clear who they are. So we have the famed director, Nate Sterling. He's really a nice man, we think.
Yeah, definitely. Nice, a little nerdy. He's still very introverted from the pandemic when we meet him, wants to stay at home, sort of wants to keep his wife at home too, and she's bristling at that when we meet her. And I think that's the first little source of tension that Cassidy, our protagonist, picks up on.
Right. So the wife is a Spanish supermodel. I sort of get a flash of Chrissy Teigen when I was thinking about her. And Chrissy's looking great after all the children and all, and bless her, she seems to be a really good mom. She's clearly lost weight and she's back to that real long-limbed, elegance and all. And so if you're trying to envision what Marisol Torres looks like, you could do worse than think about Chrissy.
For sure. Yeah.
Anyway, so you've got tension building because Nate, who can work at home and who really got used to working at home during COVID, and you've got Marisol, who clearly is bored and wants to be out. And so you can sense that trouble is brewing, and that Cassidy Foster, our heroine here, is going to get caught in the middle.
Yes, exactly. And it's pretty obvious from the beginning that Cassidy feels an attraction to Nate. So that also sort of colors everything, which was tricky because I didn't, I usually don't pay attention to the likability thing, but I didn't want to make her just like a villain or so unrelatable. I wanted to make her falling for him, relatable. I wanted the reader to understand how she gets there. So, yeah.
Kind of Jane Eyre in a way, isn't it? Or
yes,
yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, but it doesn't go the way that you expect it to go. I'm happy to say it is not a cliche at all. So which one did you have more fun writing, Nate or Marisol?
Definitely Marisol, for sure. Yeah, she's just because to me, when I started, she was unknown. And I didn't know who the villain was in this. I didn't know if Nate was the villain, if Marisol, if Cassidy, I didn't know, but Marisol was probably the most unknown to me. And so it was fun to try to peel back her layers and see, what's in there.
Sorry, that's the dogs who come home and think it's dinner time. I can't do anything about it. I locked them out. So Marisol wants to be an actress and is out busy taking lessons and so forth, which also causes tension with Nate, who wonders if she's just taking lessons or whether there's something else going on. So at this point in the story, I remember thinking to myself, how many ways can this go?
Good.
Yeah. And then it went off in ways I didn't really expect. So did you yourself? I mean, if I remember right, you're more of a pantser than a plotter, although I might have that wrong. But when you got to that point, did lightning strike and you said, okay, we're going to go this way, or how did you manage to veer off in the direction that you went?
Yes, and you're right. I am more of a pantser, and in the case of this book, it did cause a little bit of panic because I was under a deadline and I needed to have it, figured out. So thank goodness the answer of who does the killing finally came to me. And when it did, because I had gone through so many different scenarios and some, I never got attached to any of them. But when this appeared, I was like, okay, this is very clear and it makes sense to me. And so I was so relieved, Barbara, because I was thinking, am I going to have to write something I don't really feel that doesn't, am I going to have to force some ending? So
yeah. Well, no, and this is a book with more than one ending. So, I could see I thought to myself, you must have had a lot of fun as you finally, saw where you were going. And getting there would indeed be half the fun, or maybe most of the fun at that point.
Yes, it was so much fun when that pressure was finally off and I could just, uh, gallop along knowing that at least I felt good about where I was headed, whether or not, my publisher would or the reader would. Yeah, it was clear and it was fun. It was yet another escape for me. All my books are escapes for me. This was escaping the Texas heat. And I wanted to pretend like I lived back in Los Angeles. And I mean, that's really what, writing is a paycheck. It's my job, but it is also a nice escape from reality. So I try to have fun when I write my
Sure,
book.
no, I can see that. In a way, it's kind of a fantasy, not romantasy, but fantasy. And Malibu is a beautiful place. I mean, I've never owned a house there, but I have spent time there. And if you read the Wall Street Journal on Friday, they have a section called mansions, and it's not relatable to like 99.99% of the whole world because it's so serious money. But they have featured, unsurprisingly, quite a few Malibu houses over the years, and I find them fascinating. And I also wonder, if people who truly want seafront property are going to feel that way 10 years from now.
Right? It's like a tattoo.
Right. No, that's a good point. It truly is. So it seemed to me reading this that this was a story that Hollywood was almost bound to want to attract. So if you've had success with one, my experience is generally if you successfully sell one book to film or TV, however it works out, they come looking for more. So do you feel like this is one that, I mean, I can certainly see that there would be stars who would want to be in this.
That is, I'm gonna just like frame your words in a picture and hope that it comes true. I hope that there's some interest. I wrote it with that in mind,
Yeah.
and time will tell.
Well,
Hollywood.
right. No, I understand. It's just, I mean, it's publishing today. So, yeah, which reminds me, I forgot to say happy publication day, which would
Oh,
have
thank
been
you.
a good
Thank
idea.
you.
I think it's premature, but it just seemed to me like this was the story that was made, for the movies or for long form television. Actually, this one could even be a movie, couldn't it?
I kind of think so. And I wrote it with, I really love like Fatal Attraction, Unfaithful, A Perfect Murder. I love those sort of erotic thriller films. And I wrote that, Body Double, with that in mind, just sort of I mean, I don't feel like mine's as edgy, but so yeah, I would love to see it,
Yeah,
on
no, I think it'd be a really plum role. So I can recommend this as escape reading. I mean, it's really a lot of fun. So Patrick, come and join us because we are shortening this up today because May, as you can tell, is not feeling at her very best. So I promised her we'd just go for 30 minutes for this time.
Howdy. Let's see. Any questions have come in? Well, there's the question that so many writers get, which is about just about your writing process. And can you kind of share a little bit about that? Are you a morning writer, a night owl? Do you have daily word count, all that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm definitely a morning writer. I try to get done by noon if possible. But sometimes with, being a book a year author, it will be 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's what I just finished a novel after Hollywood Assistant, and that was my schedule, and that was brutal. So I'd love to get back to the other one.
And what kind of books do you like to read? Do you have any favorite authors or?
Gosh, I mean, I mainly do read crime fiction. Wow, I always go blank when I'm.
Yeah, everybody does, May. Honest to God, who was it that was at the store recently? Oh, it was Pong Shepherd. And, somebody asked her what she liked to read, and she had like, nothing to say. And then in the very next morning, there came out an article in and she had a whole list of books, that she was recommending it all. And I sent it to her and I said, we all freeze when we're asked that question.
We do. I do have an answer. It is pub day for my friend Eliza Jane Brazier, who we were on with you a couple of years ago, Barbara, and she has her book out. It's called It Had to Be You, and it's like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, sort of like they're calling it like a spy romance thriller, and it is unputdownable. So that's my hot recommendation.
Oh, good. I loved her last book. I thought it was really was a really interesting setting involving horses and
I love it too. Yeah,
it was great. So I've ordered a copy because unfortunately your publisher neglected to send me one. So I'm going to get to it when it gets here, but I'm looking forward to it because I think she's a very talented writer.
She's so great, and you'll love it. You'll absolutely.
Excellent.
There aren't a whole lot of questions this afternoon.
Well, that's possibly because most of the time they think we're going to take longer and have time to think about it.
One question was, what was the name of the author that you just mentioned?
Eliza Jane Brazier, Brazier. And Barbara, I just got to meet her in person for the first time. I was out in California last week, and we did an event together, and she's even more lovely in person. So
yeah, we did a Zoom event is it Girls and Their Horses?
I think so. I think that's the one that we did. Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I thought she was an original. I mean, there were elements in the book that you don't see very often, and it was extremely well done. She was very attractive. So I'll try to catch up with her once I get my hands on the book.
That's great. And I'll tell her that I'll give her all those compliments. Because us writers can't have enough compliments.
Well, do tell her, because I wrote to her to say something like, your publicist didn't send me a copy. So, and I think she thought I was criticizing her, and no, I was trying to say that I wasn't able to say anything because I hadn't been able to read it. And usually when I talk to an author and I haven't gotten a copy, I say so, because otherwise I think they think I just didn't like it.
Okay,
bring
I'll
it up.
let her know for sure.
Yeah, do. I mean, because I really loved her first book, and I'm looking forward to this one, and we'll see where we are. Anyway, I know that May is having a little hard time talking, so let me again recommend The Hollywood Assistant. We do have autographed copies. Today is publication day. You will be surprised, I certainly was, by the way this whole story plays out. Do not assume that these are stock characters or that you actually know what's going to happen, because you'd be so wrong.
Thank you so much, Barbara. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Patrick.
You bet.
It was our pleasure. We're going to hope that maybe next year nothing terrible happens. We've tried to get we've had such bad luck. It's either been weather or illness or something or other. And I'd really like to spend time with May at the store, but it's not her fault. It's not our fault.
I know. It's acts of God.
It feels like it. I know. But anyway, thanks very much for joining us. You go and get better. And